there's been a massive standstill with the Murdoch family, Rupert Murdoch particularly, and his children. They've been currently in the news, or kind of in and out of the news, like in a hush-hush type of manner, regarding the trust that Rupert Murdoch set up, an irrevocable trust at that. I got a chance to read a little bit about what's going on, check out a couple of articles, and kind of come to a consensus to talk about what's going on at hand. I did take some notes because it's a lot that's going on with this case, and I don't want to misspeak. If you don't know Rupert Murdoch, he is this media empire individual that essentially controls Fox News, the Wall Street Journal, very much so a media mogul. And right now he is in a legal battle against his children, 4 children particularly, with how he initially established his irrevocable trust, but now is trying to essentially backtrack it. And right now that's causing a lot of mayhem in the media. What's going on is Murdoch is 93 years old, and him and his eldest son, Lachlan, are essentially pitted against Rupert's other 3 children, James, Elizabeth, and Prudence, all because of a family trust situation that Rupert Murdoch set up. So just as like an overarching, very broad description of the 2 types of trusts, irrevocable trusts and revocable trusts. Revocable trusts are usually good for individuals that don't have taxable estates. With revocable trusts, obviously you can revoke, amend, or change that trust at any time, and items in that revocable trust will still be a part of the grantor or the person who established the trust. It'll still be a part of their estate. Now, irrevocable trusts, at the outset, the name irrevocable usually means that you can't change or you can't do anything. And while that's usually so, there are, in some instances, possibly the court has to get involved, all depending on how the agreeing parties are handling the situation, where some terms of the irrevocable trust can be amended or changed, but it has to essentially be in agreement with the beneficiaries and for the benefit of the beneficiaries. So that irrevocable trust property inside of that irrevocable trust, unlike the revocable trust, doesn't necessarily belong to the grantor anymore and isn't part of the grantor's estate. Irrevocable trusts are usually very, very good asset protection mechanisms that a lot of individuals with taxable estates decide to do. So just a little bit of background information on the 2. So as of right now, Rupert Murdoch, he established an irrevocable trust. And as I mentioned earlier, with irrevocable trusts, if you want to change anything with it, it's not impossible. It's just a little bit harder to do, and you have to make sure that the beneficiaries that you have established in that irrevocable trust are also on board with it. Murdoch set up a trust, an irrevocable trust, initially to avoid a messy dispute in his second divorce. So the terms that we know of are that the 4 siblings, his 4 children, would share power equally in the event of Rupert Murdoch's death. But this is all coming to a bad standstill right now because Rupert Murdoch, the grantor or the creator of the irrevocable trust, is worried that his other children could dislodge Lachlan, which is his son, his chosen successor, these are what my notes say, who oversees his father's Fox Corporation and News Corporation and is considered to be more politically aligned with the conservative patriarch than the other 3 siblings. From doing some research, it seems like what's going on is Rupert Murdoch initially had his 4 children to share in equal powers in his succession regarding what's going on with that media empire. But now, as Rupert Murdoch is seeing or is noticing, his 4 children, not all of them share the same identity or goals as Rupert Murdoch does. And for that reason, in order to, I guess, preserve, as stated, the conservative patriarch that these news outlets he wants to change essentially a material mechanism of the irrevocable trust. And that's where all of these problems are happening, because the other siblings essentially are like, no, you can't do this. Like, what's going on? Another issue that's going on with this Murdoch case is that the media essentially wants to have a hand in, or they want to be notified what's going on. What are y'all talking about behind closed doors? And it's so funny that this is happening just because usually with trust documents, a lot of people like to go the trust planning route just because of the privacy that trust planning provides as opposed to will-based planning, since wills become public records that, you know, essentially anyone can have access to. So it's very interesting that the media is trying to get in on what usually would be a private matter, but they feel since it has to do with the Murdoch family and the fate of the media companies in itself, they feel that they are entitled to know what's going on behind closed doors. Edmund Gorman Jr., the local county probate commissioner, ruled that the media mogul could request changes to the trust if he is able to show he is acting in good faith and for the sole benefit of his heirs. Going back to what I stated about with irrevocable trusts, they're not necessarily, you know, impossible to change or to go back and, you know, do some amending. But obviously, once you put an irrevocable trust together, when you do anything like that, it has to be for the benefit of the beneficiaries at this point. You can't just, you know, go back and say, I feel like changing this because I just don't want to do it anymore. But usually the courts don't have to get involved with changes to irrevocable trust so long as all the beneficiaries are on board. But I'm guessing because the other children know that Murdoch wants to change the trust, children essentially lose a little bit of power. That's where this court involvement is coming from. A lot of this is happening, or when these types of irrevocable trust issues happen, they kind of share the common themes of tension between, you know, family preservation, control, maximizing financial value, and conflicts over the company's future direction. As we can see right now, there is a conflict with how the secession of the Murdoch media empire is going to go, because Murdoch wants to ensure that his business remains more conservative as opposed to the possibility of his possible other 3 children being more so liberally leaning. I do want to note that one of the sons actually went out and put a bid behind Vice President Kamala Harris, so that also may have something to do with it. But a lot of this stuff governing irrevocable trust, I just want to remind everyone that just because this is the Murdoch family and this is in the media, normally when it comes to these types of cases, they usually are private and there usually are closed-door meetings that take place, particularly between parties involved in the trust specifically. This isn't usually information that we would really know about. Like, everyday individuals probably have these issues all the time that we just don't know about, but this is particularly front-facing news because the family that is essentially, you know, the secession planning that's going on and the issues about, you know, where and what's going to happen and who's going to control what, this is kind of why this is in the forefront. I'm going to actually be following this case as much as I can. As of right now, title of the trust is, or the title at the moment right now is the Matter of Doe 1 Trust. So I'm going to be following this as much as I can just to get a little bit more information about it. If y'all have any questions about irrevocable trusts or revocable trusts, please leave some comments, or if you have any commentary about the Murdoch family and possibly what's going to happen or what the fate of these media companies will be, whether or not it'll be equal parts, all the children sharing, or majority of the power going to Rupert Murdoch's chosen successor, Lachlan. And so as a reminder, my name is Leah Boston. I'm an estate planning attorney here in the state of Maryland and owner of law office of Leah Boston LLC. I draft wills, I draft trusts, and I definitely discuss these types of issues with families who want to talk about their business succession planning or essentially need help setting up or getting started on their estate planning. If you have any questions, please contact my office, or if you're ready to get started, definitely contact my office at www.leahbostonlaw.com, and I'm happy to help get you started.